we're proud to announce that Harlequin Hotels and Resorts, as a 5-star brand, has been officially launched, and the fact that Buckingham Bay will open on time on the 1st of July 2010. What I'd like to explain to you now is the success of Harlequin model and how it's come together over the last 4 years and how we've got to be where we are today. Because when you come to invest in a project such as ours, what people always forget about is not so much the actual putting money into a project, but is what is at the end. What are you putting your money in, and how do you get your money out, and how does those incomes and that profit you're looking for long term comes out of the project. And so what I'd like to do is explain why this is different to people, why even in these difficult times the model is still successful and people are still investing every week with us in our projects throughout the Caribbean. Let me talk about our investors. What is important to understand here is that what we like to do for our investors is to make things affordable to them. So it's no good me staying here today and saying to you, you know, a property in the Caribbean is £1 million, when the majority of people haven't got £1 million to invest. So what we've had to do is come up with a different type of model that works for everybody, as I've mentioned earlier. And how it works for our investor is the fact that we make it very affordable to them. So what happens is we ask our investor to raise 30% of the property price. So let's just say they invest £100,000. What we look for them to do is to raise 30% of that, which is £30,000. Now let's just say that costs them to get a mortgage or a loan. Let's just say it's £250 a month. Well, what we then do, we actually pay that money back to the investor. So the time during the build, it doesn't actually cost them a penny out of their own bank. We're actually, the project, the resort, is paying for those payments for them. Now why would we do that? If you think about it, Harlequin is a partner with our investor because Harlequin actually own the resort. So what happens is when we're renting their room, we actually share the percentage of the money from that room. So for example, with our investors, they receive 50% of the room rate after the second year. So what happens, for every, say, £100, our investor gets 50 and the resort gets £50. So it's in the hotel's interest, as well as our investor, to get as much money for that room as we can. So how do you do that? That is where our third party come in with our partners, is the fact that it's no good just building a beautiful resort, it's the most stunning resort in the Caribbean, and no one's going there. You know, that's no benefit to anybody either, because when you have an investment like this, you need to fill the rooms and you need to generate income. So what we've done and how we've achieved that is by arranging to get, we feel, some of the best partners. And one of the issues that you have on travel side is that, yes, you can get some of the big branded name hotels to run your resort, but what people are going to understand is that these companies are hotel management companies. The issue is that they will sell and run the resort, but what they can't do is bring people in as such. And the strength we have with Oasis is they're part of a company called Globelia. Now the strength of Globelia is the fact that not only do they have 2,000 travel agents throughout America and Europe, they also have their own airline. They're the largest privately owned airline in Europe. So they're flying, you know, it's around 50 jets, wide-body jets at the moment, to and fro from Europe into the Caribbean. So not only do they run 50 hotels, they run their own airline and they run the travel agents, and they actually deal with every major tour company throughout America and Europe. So we feel confident that when we build this stunning resort, we will be able to bring the people in. So when we bring them in, what have we got to offer them? Well, we're pleased to say that we've got agreements with Liverpool Football Club, where we're opening soccer schools throughout the Caribbean with Liverpool. We have people like Gary Player. We're opening the first 5-star, in fact it'll be probably 6-star branded, Gary Player Hotel in the world. On top of that, we're actually building his first signature golf course in St. Lucia as well. So if you add people like Pat Cash, who obviously ex-Wimbledon champion, and you talk about Tradovix, who are one of the leading brands of 5-star resorts throughout the world, we have some of the finest eateries. We also have Senior Pico. We also have the famous Mai Tai Lounge. In addition to that, we've also created some new concepts, first being Ginger & Co., which is going to be a fusion Asian restaurant. We also have a fine Italian dining restaurant called Harlequino, which is actually Italian for Harlequin. So as you can see, what we've tried to do is make it more interesting. Rather than the bland, every evening you go and eat in the same restaurant, the same buffet, you have choices. We have a number of different styles of restaurants for you to come and eat. Because if we're going to promise our investors a return from their money, you need to prove that you can do this. Well, we feel we've done that with our partners. But not only that, it's got to work for the country we're in as well. In the past, companies have tended to buy land in the Caribbean and sold it on at a profit. Well, that's not what we do at Harlequin. We like to work with the local people and work with the governments so that everybody is rewarded for the investment that we make in the Caribbean. In Buckingham Bay, we already at this moment in time are employing just under 1,000 local people building the resort. And when the hotel is open, we expect to be employing a further 1,500 to be running our resort. We've just signed a charter with the United Nations whereby we're going to be working with the United Nations in countries like St Vincent, where we'll be teaching the locals how to produce the food locally to supply the 5-star resort. And not only that, is to train the fishermen to catch the types of fish required in a 5-star resort. So as you can see here, it's about putting something back into the country as well. And the great thing about that is the fact that when you're over in the country, they actually appreciate what we're doing. They know that we're not just over there trying to earn money. So that goes back to the whole key of the success of what we're putting together here, is the fact it works for all 4 people in our business model. It works for our investor, it works for Harlequin, it works for our partners in running the resort, but it works for the government as well. So when it comes to the investor, you know, what is in it for them? Well, the strength for us is the fact that, for example, in St Vincent, they're prepared to give us tax advantages to help us run a successful resort, which can help to actually give returns to the investor as well. Let me just step back to what you need to understand from 3 or 4 years ago when we first started to put this together. What we realised then is almost impossible for our investors to actually get a 70% mortgage in the Caribbean. It's not because no one wants to give it on it, it's just the fact they're not established enough. Their markets and their banks are not established enough. So we understood and realised that we had to work to help our investor to actually raise that money, because obviously their property they've invested in is in the Caribbean, and banks in England don't give that. So what we had to do to explain to people is the fact that normally if you go and get a mortgage, the bank or the mortgage broker, mortgage company, would give you maybe 3 to 6 months to complete. Well, when you're selling 3 or 4 years ahead, it's obviously impossible to do that because no one knows what the rates are, whatever it is. What you need to understand is that let's just look at the worst way. Let's just say nobody, next year, all these people who've bought in Buckingham Bay with us, they've now got the resort, it's now open on the 1st of July 2010, they are now due their 70%. What are we going to do? What reaction are we going to make to our investor? Well, the great thing is, if you think about it, the added bonus of this is the fact, if you look at Buckingham Bay, it will be, we imagine the value is going to be between 300 to 400 million US dollars. Now, the great thing is, because of our business model, how it works, we don't have any borrowings on that. It's completely unencumbered. So when we have an asset like this, you know, we personally can go to a bank to borrow money on that. And because it is one mortgage on one security, we know we can get a much better rate, which we can pass to our investor. But let's just say the banks don't want to give the money to us. So let's look at how things will be next July, right? So on the 1st of July 2010, we open the doors, we give all the keys to our investors. What happens then? Well, the great thing is, because our investors, the resort is not just sitting there empty. For the year prior to that, we're actually taking bookings. So we imagine, let's say the resort is 50% occupied from the 1st of July 2010. We have an income coming in. We have 200 people, 200 rooms occupied. We have bars, we have restaurants. So what's happening? We're actually generating an income already. But because we don't have any mortgage or loans, that money is free money. So what we then have to do is that we've promised 10% rental guarantee to our investor for the first 2 years. So let's just say that the mortgage, as I said earlier, on a property, the 30% was 250. Let's just say the mortgage now is £750 a month for the 70%. Well, the great thing is we owe them 10% for the income from their room. So let's call that £1,000 that we actually owe the client. They actually owe us £750 for the mortgage. So if you think about it, the actual rental income that you're generating actually covers the 10%. So technically, we don't actually need to raise any money from our investor or from our point of view. So the great thing is, from our investor's point of view, you haven't got to worry about what's going to happen with the 70% mortgage. You don't need to find that. We feel confident we will be able to get that anyway.